This session will let us know about the implementation of BIM in Spain, and Sergio Muñoz will be the facilitator. This year we have been lucky enough to count on a new partner to organize the European BIM Summit, and this new member has been key. This new partner is Building Smart, and we will have as a facilitator and speaker, we will have Sergio Muñoz, who is the president of the Building Smart Spanish chapter since its inception in 2012. If you don't know, Building Smart and the Spanish chapter is a member of the Building Smart International Association, and it includes the different stakeholders in the sector of construction: promoters, investors, construction, engineering, architectural studies, software developers, facility and project managers, research, products, materials manufacturers, universities, and the government itself. The main objective is to promote efficiency in the construction sector through BIM and the use of open standards for interoperability. I would like to give a message to all of those who are from Spain and who are interested in BIM. And I would tell you that I think it's interesting that we do partnerships with Building Smart so that we can have a powerful association, as other associations in Germany, for example, so that all the BIM institutions can have a bottom-up process, a more powerful bottom-up process. So, Sergio Muñoz, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Ignacy. Good morning, everyone. There are still people coming back from the coffee break, but in this first session, what we are going to do, we want to have a little review of where we are, where we come from, and where we are going. This is what we are going to do in the presentation, to give some kind of introduction to Jesus Silva and Francisco Diegues' presentations. I will talk about why our goal in Spain should be to lead BIM in Spanish. The building sector in Spain, I think we all know that has been a worldwide leader. You can see some works from Marca Espanya. These are very large works that Spanish companies have carried on throughout the world. However, we see a trend. We are going slightly downwards. It's not a strong crisis, but our positioning is changing at the worldwide level. Here we have a ranking from 2011 and 2015. Sometimes we go up, sometimes we go down, but there is a slight trend to go down. And we must think, why? Why is this happening? Will this continue? What can we do to go back on track where we were? And we need to talk about several topics here. One of the first things we need to talk about is change in the model, the way we collaborate. We participate in projects where many stakeholders participate. And of course, each stakeholder has their own interests. And so we follow the vulture model, where we take as much as we can, and then the corpse is our end client, or maybe the main contractor, whoever it is. This is the way we were used to work. I try to take the most out of it, and then the problem is for another person. However, we need to talk about the way we work. We keep on building the same way as we did 50 years ago. So it's been very interesting to hear Dominique Tarasatar about additive manufacturing, robotics, and other topics that are not really implemented yet here. So basically, these affects on how the sector behaves at a productivity level. We see that other sectors, you see your work, you improve your processes, you are more productive. However, in our sector, we haven't really grown. We are going down in some way regarding productivity. So this is where we come from and where we are right now a little bit. So how do we want to regain our leadership in the sector? Because we think our building sector is very powerful. And there's not many countries that have done so many building works over the past 10 years. So we want to regain that position. So basically, my starting point is that we need to change the collaboration model, the vulture model I showed you earlier. Also, regarding methodology, we need to do digitalization of projects, and we need to increase productivity. This is very necessary. So who is affected by all these things? This will affect people, this will affect technology, the technology we use, and the processes. And we'll see how BIM affects all these things. Also, if we want to talk about where we are, we'll see later, we'll talk about other countries. And here we have the implementation levels of BIM in Europe, and we were at the bottom of Europe. However, to me, it's very significant that United Kingdom, who is way farther than us, 2 years ago was at the same level. So our goal will be reach the UK level. We don't really need to overpass them, we don't need to be the top one, but we want to be there. And how do we do that? From Building Smart, we have a proposal. We want to create the right environment, and we want to base it on standards. We talk about common data environment. This is the English schema. So we promote collaboration, and in this common data environment, there's also some data exchange. But what else do we need? Well, we need to change the model from the vulture model I showed to a partnership model, where competitors can join their efforts for a common goal, the same way it happened with Barça and Madrid in Spain some years ago, and by partnerships we can reach great goals. But we need to standardize the environment. So how can we do that? And what do we need to standardize? So basically I think there are three aspects. Data, how by using standards like IFC we can change things. We need to see what problems we have by using it. We need to define a unified glossary. We need to look at the MVDs, IDMs. Then we talk about processes. We need to talk about contracting models that allow to collaborate and that we feel comfortable by participating together. We need to define also the BEPs. And then we need to talk about people, because we need many people. So we need to convince them that this is the path we want to follow. We need to train these new professionals, and we need to recycle the professionals we already have, because we have many. And we need to translate that into having formats, developing pilot projects that are carried forward by the administration and by the private sector. We need to have good use guides that standardize the working process for everyone, and we need to have training plans that offer similar training for the future and new professionals. But we are beyond other people. We start later than other countries like the UK or the Nordic countries. However, beginning later doesn't really mean that we will be the last ones. Here in the picture we see a motorship race in Valencia 2012 where Marc Marquez was the last one at the beginning, at the start line. However, he won the race. So again, the fact that we start the last ones doesn't mean that we need to be the last ones if we do things right. And what does that mean? We do not need to reinvent the wheel. We can analyze the environment of other countries. We can analyze the learning curve that other countries have developed in 5 years, and maybe we can do it in 3 years, 3.5. But we also need resources, of course. We need time, we need economic resources, construction resources, we need people. Without resources, it's just, words. And that's not enough if we won't be the last ones. And we need to move together towards the same direction. Professional companies, university, the administration, and all the entities that provide training. We understand that Building Smart can be a key stakeholder here. They can facilitate this process because we promote. Last year, for example, we were very active in more than 25 sessions and events about BIM. We also promote the standardization. We have developed use guides, and I want to thank Tommy Hankinen because we have based our work in the Finnish guides that they let us use, and also because we want to collaborate and assess any entity that wants to work on BIM. We have the S.BIM, we have the Catalan Construcció del Futur Commission, and we have different AENOR committees and CEN committees in Europe. Right now we have 125 entities in Building Smart, so we are growing. And I also want to invite you to partner with us if you want to join efforts. And also I want to make a reflection when we talk about it. How do you see the glass? Because of course there are always two visions, right? Two ways of looking at it. I'm the one who says it's half full because the construction sector is very powerful. However, some people will say it's half empty because we are far behind other countries and we are not up to the demands of the market. We don't know how to collaborate. We don't know how to digitalize, but that's what we want to do. We want to do BIM in Spain. And one last thing I would like to say, it doesn't matter we started later than others. The important thing is to start and know the path, having the necessary resources. Thank you very much. And given I'm also the moderator, I will give the floor to Jesus Silva. He has a degree in law. He's the president of INECO, the public engineering company. He has been ambassador in countries like Panama until 2014. And in INECO, he coordinates the national BIM strategy, S.BIM, and he will talk about it right now. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for my delay this morning. I was supposed to be here to represent the Ministry of Development in the opening session, but unluckily we had some transportation issues because of an accident in the high-speed railway, and I was late. So that's why I was not here, but now I am. I wanted, however, to thank the organizers of this event, the second event of this type, and we want to really congratulate them for this initiative and also for the quantity and quality of speakers we have gathered here and the large interest that it has aroused in people. I also want to thank Sergio from Building Smart Spanish chapter, because from the first moment has been really involved in this national BIM commission that I will talk about right now. And I also want to thank the IETEC folks because they have participated in these topics from the first moment. As you know, INECO is an engineering. We have been working for almost 45 years now. It is integrated by public companies and publics that manage ADIF, Renfe, or AENA, the public transportation companies in Spain. And we have taken part in all the large infrastructure projects in Spain over the past decades, especially those related to high-speed, airports, ports, roads. Also, it's also a company that participates in international projects. We are in several markets, over 50 countries. In many cases, we are also involved in large planning processes for infrastructures that are being carried on in other countries and continents. And in many of these countries, our engineers had to become familiar some time ago with new technologies and specifically with the BIM technology. That has happened in projects like the high-speed subway in the United Kingdom, SH2, and also some projects for new terminals in Abu Dhabi. So in these projects, we had to, from the first moment, we had to work and train a new generation of professionals and engineers that knew how to use new technologies. That's why INECO, because it's an engineering company and a public engineering, has always granted large importance to innovation. And for that reason, from the first moment, we thought and we knew that BIM would be a trend for the future, and in Spain, we needed to implement it and move forward. That's why we tried to make really aware the Ministry of Development that we need to do something in the international context. In many countries, especially in Europe, many strategies were born regarding BIM, and also public administrations and public works would require BIM technology in some countries. So we became aware that we had four needs, or four realities, rather. The first one was to do outreach, to spread the word. Also, we had the need to standardize. We also needed to train people, of course, because without properly trained professionals, we could not implement BIM technology. And we also had the need to generalize its use. So we saw different initiatives in this section. We are talking about April 2015, and we partnered with an association in Madrid, Ramon Arejes, and we invited several representatives from different sectors, universities, professional schools, construction companies, and we gathered them in a session to talk about what was being done in Spain. And we saw that way more is being done than what we thought. We saw that many people were already working in these areas, even administrations that were already using BIM technologies in some of their projects, like in Catalonia. They have been pioneers in the use of these kind of technologies, but also in southern Spain, in Andalusia. And even ADIF from the central government had done some BIM projects. So we called for attention for all the BIM stakeholders, and we told them we needed to organize. We needed to create a task force, and they asked us from the central government to take action and lead the initiative to create something. That's where the national BIM strategy came to the scenery, with the idea of promoting the implementation of BIM in the Spanish building industry. They wanted to set the horizon, a common horizon, as a guide. They wanted to create these standards and guides that would act as a reference for all the building sector, and they wanted to raise awareness for the building sector in the public administration, to use it in an academic environment or non-academic environment, and they wanted to spread knowledge and promote the use of BIM. Lastly, the strategy also aimed that a construction sector like the Spanish construction sector that has had a very important role worldwide, so they wanted to support new methodologies and new working procedures to keep the position they had had for so many years. So the goal is to increase the productivity in the construction sector and have significant savings in the cost of asset maintenance through the use of the BIM methodology. So we launched this commission, we call it S.BIM, S-BIM. So there's some way of public leadership there regarding coordination, and also because basically the important thing is that it's not a national government initiative. It is true that the Ministry of Development coordinates the efforts, and as I was saying, so the public government coordinates, but the idea behind is that it's an open commission. Our goal is to have collaboration between public and private sectors. Whoever wants to collaborate is welcome to join. So it's not really an official entity. So when we talk about strategy, we want to create strategy not only for building, but also for infrastructures, because there's a lot to do in that sector. And we followed some benchmarking. In July, we had the first session, so we officially created the commission. In October, we had the second session, and lastly, in February, we have had the third session. We want to work in the strategic plan, and we need to do a very exhaustive diagnosis of the situation in Spain at the university level, innovation, research, construction, companies, public administrations, and so on. And we also need to look at the benchmarking. We need to look for better practices. We don't really want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to incorporate the best practices from other countries. And then, in a further step, we want to approach the four biggest steps: outreach, training, processes, and technology. And at the end, the goal will be to make BIM compulsory for public procurement. That's the idea we have. We want to promote this mandate to speed up the implementation goals. We want to strengthen the capacity of the public sector in BIM application, and we want to promote the interoperability between tools so that people can access technology. We have created 4 task forces. We have a group, 5 workforces, strategy that looks for innovation and future developments. The second task force, we've called it Personas, People, and it basically deals about the change of culture and training for all the people, the new roles and responsibilities that will arise, the need of bigger communication and transparency. Some people already told us we were not prepared enough, or we have been moving forward too fast, and that happens when there are some cultural fears that face new challenges. We also have a task force for processes. We want to do a proposal to change regulations, guides, binding forms. We want to support the standardization of processes, but for that we need to do an exhaustive analysis, and it's not easy. It's not an easy task. When we talk to public administrations, it's not always easy to convince them that we need to change regulations to allow for new methods to come into the scenario. Another task force is technology. We need to guarantee some interoperability and the use of open BIM and free access. And then we have the task force called International. We had this benchmarking policy, and that has been very fruitful. We have become a part of the task force in the European Union, and we have been in touch with several similar initiatives in European countries. However, there is also another very important side that we have seen from the beginning, and it's the interest that it creates in Latin America and Spanish-speaking countries. Countries like Peru, Chile. We see that there are some new initiatives. They are very interested to see what's going on in Spain. So as long as we have the capacity to create dialogue with professionals and Spanish speakers, stakeholders, we will be able to have a key role when creating new technologies, offering new training options. And if we didn't do that, we would follow the Anglo-Saxon model. So that's why we need to be aware that we need to recover our position and offer new alternatives. Out of those 5 big task forces, we have many subgroups. Here you see some. We have, for example, strategy. We have then a subgroup for term glossaries, benchmarking. Another one is doing a survey on the current situation, use follow-up. Another one is creating a strategic plan. And another subgroup is basically working with SMEs. I'm not going to talk about all the subgroups, but I'm going back to the 5th group I mentioned, the 5th task force, international. And basically, in summary, out of the 5 task forces, the important is that we have 24 subgroups. We have 48 people responsible for the groups and over 150 members that work in the different subgroups. This gathers professionals from all sectors, and we are working on the first documents already, and we hope that we will have the first results in March this year. So we are working basically with the aim that 2016 will be the year to create all the necessary subgroups and to generate all the documentation and strategy. And in 2018, we want to work on it so that we have full implementation in 2019, while we face the different challenges that arise. And seeing all these, we have created a BIM decalogue, 10 rules that have been part of the processes from the beginning. The first one would be to promote the implementation of BIM in the Spanish construction industry by creating a task force that will allow open participation to all the sector, both public and private. Secondly, we want to promote the use of BIM in all the infrastructure life cycle. Thirdly, we want to raise awareness to public administrations regarding BIM establishment in public procurement in order to reduce costs. Fourth, we want to establish a calendar to adapt the regulations to use BIM. Fifth, we want to develop national standards so that we can use BIM. Six, we want to create an academic map for the BIM training in Spain, and we want to include it in study plans. 7, we want to promote digitalization of works. We want to leave behind the physical format that would allow for savings. 8, we want to promote the application of open BIM. That is, that all the operations related to BIM will be based in open and universal standards that are interoperable between them. 9, we want to support a better positioning of the Spanish industry in the world through the BIM methodology. And 10, we want to settle participation of Spain in international decision-making forums. One of the first results has been the inclusion and full participation of Spain in the EU BIM task group. All in all, the idea I want to communicate today is that, yes, we started later. There has been some honest dialogue between the different stakeholders, different associations, everyone has expressed their views, also some fears. For example, it's been clear that the SMEs need help to catch up. Other people have pointed out that a sudden implementation of BIM could mean that we exclude some sectors of the professional building sector. Others have warned about the high cost of open BIM. So basically, we see that there are some fears, and that's natural. However, what we are trying to say is that this commission is not really an official commission. Everyone can come here and share their thoughts. But we need to be aware what direction we are following, follow the same direction the world is moving forward. Many Spanish companies know that already. We need to work with the new methodologies, and they are becoming more able to work with BIM methodologies. And if they are doing it already, why can't we take advantage of this know-how, of these increasing know-hows in Spain? Secondly, the academia, universities need to catch up. They need to be up to date. We are trying to tell them that in just a few years, all engineers or quality surveyors need to be fully trained in BIM methodology when they leave the university. There are masters, there are seminars, but this needs to be part of the university degree in a short term. And this is one of the challenges we have, because basically new generations will be the ones that will make this use of these technologies move forward. We need also to regain all the wasted time. Otherwise, other countries will move faster. We need to be a referent for Latin America. Fourth, we need our companies to be competitive. And lastly, we need public administrations to be aware that this is going to be a complicated task, because regulations will have to be changed in order to allow the use of these technologies. And they also need to be aware that we need to start using new technologies, and we need to keep the use of BIM in mind for public procurement. So finally, INECO has used something to convince the Ministry of Development. We have told them that this is more transparent, more collaborative, and more reasonable. We can use public resources in a more reasonable way, because when we work with BIM, we avoid some mistakes and costumes in the Spanish public administration that has caused delays, for example, in projects. So these collaborative technologies will be more efficient. It saves costs to public administrations, but mainly it is more sustainable in the medium and long term. And I'm sorry, I think it took me more time than I expected, but thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation.
So now I give the floor to Francisco Dieguez. He's a civil engineer, and he's a general director of ITEC, which is the Catalan Institute of Building Technology. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm not here as the chairman of ITEC, but as a member of the committee Building the Future, which is the topic I am going to talk mostly about. So the origins of this committee go back in 2014, when the association suggested the need to organize ourselves and find a change of model which allows us to face the economic and financial crisis in Spain, to see how to redirect the current situation in order to become leaders again. So here you can see a picture of the first meetings we held at the beginning of 2015, which was a year of very hard work. I believe that the work we've done, it's excellent, and we've got different public actions. So I'm going to keep myself short because Sergio already warned me. So I'll just try to move quickly with the slides. So the first thing that we did in those meetings was, or in that meeting particularly, was to analyze the situation in the industry, as Sergio already said in his presentation. And we saw that the building industry for 30, 40 years had been a success story, actually. We've reached a great transformation in equipment and infrastructures and in Spain. You can see here some real pictures from 1975 and 2016. So you can see the difference. You can tell a big change has been carried out. And also very important, in the past few years, as Sergi already said, that our professionals and companies have gained international prestige, are working abroad. It's true, though, that we are losing some muscle, but still, we are in a good position. Also, it has to be mentioned that it's necessary to have some self-criticism, and we have to learn from the mistakes from the past. And the model we have in Spain, in Catalonia, we know that there's few work compared to the number of people who work in this area. So many offers and projects are signed based mostly upon the price. So there's no room for improving the quality of the work, or this room is very little, sorry. So we kind of, we used to have a very successful model which worked for some decades, but it's not a model that can be used nowadays or for the future. At the Spanish level, which presents a future with a low growth rate. So we need definitely a change. When we talk about change, we said, okay, why don't we take advantage of new technologies? And we analyzed and studied what other countries were doing. So we analyzed these collaborative technologies and saw what our neighbors were doing, technologies such as BIM, lean construction, or IPD. And from that technologies, we tried to define a new model for the industry that allows us to be back on track and to be as successful as we were in the past. Well, the main goals of the committee are logically trying to find and to generate the new way of working, and of course this requires some changes, some modifications that must be analyzed, some regulations that promote collaborative work. And I'm sure that all of you working with BIM know what I'm talking about, but more specifically, a change in mindset. Because when we talk about BIM, we know that it relies on a change in mindset. It requires a very collaborative way of work. And the only way we have to be successful is to change the model we used to work currently. Every agent has his own goals, but we must be able to align all the goals and make them main goals. So that will be the optimization of the constructive element throughout the whole life cycle. And this will allow us to work in a more transparent and efficient way. When I talk about transparency and optimization, I'm not just talking about economics, but also about techniques, quality, social and environmental aspects of construction and building. At the same time, or parallel to this initiative, from the ITEC. Last year, the BIM-CAD manifesto came to light. This manifesto was the result of the last year's edition of the European BIM Summit. So the name, it's Manifesto or BIM-CAD Manifesto. And basically, it describes this objective of working in a more collaborative and transparent way in the building industry. So that would be some of the agents that have allowed this manifesto. We have the Catalan government, the Barcelona City Council, and the CATEP. We should be the example to be followed. We are working parallel in two different initiatives, and I think we should all converge. And since we had two different initiatives, we decided to join our efforts, and the result was the committee Building the Future, Construimos el Futuro. The main goal is to define action, responsibilities, and the necessary process to implement BIM processes in the building sector. Here you can see a list of the different institutions that are supporting this committee. We have public administrations, professionals, associations, technological agents, universities, and so on. Well, the first topic that the committee has worked on or has focused on is the introduction of new work collaborative models. Considering the life cycle of the constructive elements, we are very aware that in a globalized world, we have to pay attention to everything that's going on around us. And also our integration as active members, as BIM members, it's of fundamental relevance. So regarding our organization, we have three different levels. We have a plenary assembly, where the over 40 institutions are represented. We have task forces. We have three different areas. The first one works on regulations, the second processes, and the third technology. Each task force has a dynamizer or a facilitator who kind of manage the activity of the different groups. Besides that, each group is allowed to organize in different panels if they deem that necessary or appropriate. And moreover, we have a coordination committee which actually coordinates and organizes the work of the different task forces, and also the three facilitators, plus two very well-known people in the BIM sector, which is Ignasi Pérez-Alnar and his colleague, who are very well-known in our sector. Well, going very quickly because I'm running out of time. The first task force has Alitec as facilitator, and its goal is to analyze the possible introduction or ways of introduction of new collaborative ways in the European and Spanish system, and to make the necessary amendments in the regulation if necessary, so that we can make the most of it, of this new way of working. Here you can see how this model can fit into the current legislation. We can see the current flow on the upper part, which is a sequential one. So it depends, or let's say that each phase of the process, the building process, is considered to be a unique or an individual part. And we should move towards the bottom part flow, which is a more collaborative model where each phase is strictly or strongly related to other phases of the same process. Of course, it is not easy this transition is not easy at all. And we rely mainly on the private sector, because they are the ones who are going to implement it. So they must be convinced that this way of working is efficient. Once the private sector has adopted it, we should go to the public administration, which is more complex. And the second group, where the CATEP is a member, or the facilitator, and its goal is to identify the processes that improve in a significant way the productivity of the building process, consider it as a whole, from the beginning to the deconstruction and refurbishment of the building and the final or the last stages of its life cycle, in order to be more transparent. In this second task force, following topics are debated, like defining new roles of the agents that participate in the building construction, a taxonomic dictionary, identification of participant agents in each process, structuring of new process, and determination of the results of BIM processes, impact assessment, rights and obligations for a smart use of information, and then defining indicators and metrics to be more efficient, and finally to train the people or the different agents that are part of the building process. This group has done a SWOT analysis. We don't have time to go through it, but it's very interesting. So if you want to take a deeper look at it, I deeply recommend it. And finally, we have the third task force, which focuses on technology. And this group is led by the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, Mr. Coloma, and its goal is to define the workflows, terminologies, semantics of new methodologies in collaborative work, to describe the role that is expected of each technological tool, and to improve interoperability among the different informatic tools, and registering all the services and methods that may fit for an information exchange. Currently, what is our degree of progress? Of course, it's necessary, or we should be a little bit beyond that we are. And this third group, since they need the conclusions of the first two groups, they listed some topics that deemed interesting. So the feasibility studies and scope of IFC format, analysis documenting or incidents detected, or low-cost common data environments, feasibility studies and of classification and taxonomy systems, and finally technologies of algorithm design in BIM. The results, the outcome, and the outputs of these work groups will come to light in the next months. And finally, the ultimate goal would be the roadmap, a BIM roadmap, which is foreseen in the BIM mandate in Catalonia, signed last year. And again, as I said, the last goal will be a mandate, a BIM mandate for Catalonia, and in order to have some guidelines for a proper implementation of BIM. We analyzed different roadmaps from countries around us, and currently we are developing our own roadmap. You can see here the first draft, and some elements have already been defined, but some others are still in drafting phase. And since I definitely run out of time, please let me say that from the ITEC, we really want to emphasize the importance of this new way of working. We are really committed to that, and therefore, from 11th to the 13th of May in 2016, we are having the last planner system, a workshop on lean construction, we are going to hold several workshops, and I hope that's interesting. So thank you very much for your attention. And as I said, I had to keep myself short, but if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.